Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be talking about 5 players whose stock went up after the Washington Commanders' first preseason game against the Carolina Panthers. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. Also hit that like button and turn on those notifications, and check out Real-Time Fantasy Sports, link in the description. Okay, so the Washington Commanders finished their first preseason game yesterday against the Carolina Panthers and lost 23-21, and there were definitely some players that, raised their stock and some that lowered it. We'll talk about the players that lowered their stock in tomorrow's video, but let's talk about the guys that increased their stock. So the first guy on this list is obvious, Sam Howell, 9 for 16. We'll look here. Yeah, 9 for 16, 145 yards, also added 19 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and had a nice pass on a 2-point conversion, which was a great play that Scott Turner drew up. And yes, he did have a couple mistakes, like on the last drive, which again, it's not even that bad because there's 20 seconds left. You got to be a little bit more risky, but he threw not a great pass and almost got intercepted. And I think on his second drive, he also almost got intercepted. But that is to be expected in a guy's first game ever, preseason game or not. And he was drafted in the 5th round, so that's to be expected. I think, though, he had more good plays than bad plays. And you combine him playing well with Heineke not playing well, I think that bodes well for him. I still think for this year, Heineke's going to be the backup just because he really, really knows the offense. His teammates love him, and I just think that you want to really develop Howell, and throwing him in there when he's not ready might not be the move. But if they do it, I wouldn't be too upset about it. But then if you develop Howell and you feel good about him, then he can be the backup going into next year. Or really just depends on how Carson Wentz looks as well. But Howell looked really good. You could see the zip on his, on his throws to, Kyrie McGowan, Michelle, and, even Harmon. That was a nice pass. It wasn't a perfect pass, but it should have been caught. And yeah, that could have been a touchdown for Sam Howell right there. But for the most part, he played really well. Also, was able to not only get 2 rushing touchdowns, 19 total yards, but you could see him extend plays with his legs. I thought he did a really good job doing that on that play to Alex Erickson, which was a 40-yard gain, which, got 15 yards right back because of a, I think taunting by Bonifant, the last string running back. But yeah, Howell was definitely someone that looked good today. We'll go to this one first. The next guy's obvious, but Stephen Parker played really well for the Commanders. So this is PFF. They kind of graded all the players with, a minimum of 20 snaps. And, Stephen Parker had a really good day. Willie Beavers had a good day. And Sam Cosmi, we know he's making the roster, and his stock isn't going to really go that much higher. But someone like Stephen Parker, and even Willie Beavers, but I'm going to focus on Stephen Parker right here. He is competing for a roster spot. He played really well yesterday. He had a nice tackle on PJ Walker where, a lot of times those DBs or linebackers miss that tackle when the quarterback's, running in the open field. But he made a nice big hit where sometimes the quarterback's even going to lose that. So he played well there. He also, had some really good coverage overall. I thought he was one of the best players yesterday. I want to see his stats. I know he had 5. Yeah, he had 3 total tackles and 2 pass deflections or defended. So he played really well. Probably the best player, one of the best players on defense for sure, with the 2 pass breakups, and had 3 really nice tackles. So he's definitely has a shot to make the roster over some of these other guys. I didn't see if he played special teams or not, but a guy that didn't play much, Troy Apke, only played 2 snaps. I still don't know if he's going to make the roster. I know a lot of people think he's a lock, but with Percy Butler and Derek Forrest, who play special teams and are going to make the team, I don't know. I don't think he's really needed, but who knows? But Stephen Parker played really well for the Commanders, and I think he has a shot to make the roster. Next guy on this list is, of course, Brian Robinson. This one's obvious, but Brian Robinson looked really good for the Commanders. Scored the first ever Commanders touchdown. I guess it's preseason, so doesn't really count, in terms of the history books. But yeah, he played really well. Gibson had that fumble, and then Brian Robinson comes in there and has 6 carries, 26 yards, 4.3 yards per carry, had a touchdown, and a couple of those carries were short yardage situations, which brings down those yards per carry. and he also showed that he's a capable pass catcher. He had 2 catches for 15 yards, and I felt like both of them, the expected yards that he was, probably supposed to get was probably like 4 or 5 each, and he extended the play. He broke a couple of tackles on both of those plays, and I felt like a lot of the carries too, after like the first couple carries he did really well with it. Like I think the first carry was like 10 or 11 yards, and then after that he had a nice carry. But then after that, like I didn't think like either it was the design of the play or the blocking up front, it wasn't great. And, I think he got a couple extra yards each time, running people over, stuff like that. And it was like, there was a lot of times where he did not get tackled. Like, he might have gotten pushed out of bounds, but, like, he was still up, and it just shows how powerful he is and how hard it is to bring him down. So many times where he just made guys fall to the ground because of how powerful he is. So he's a guy that not only did his stock go up, but Gibson stock obviously went down. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So that bodes well for Brian Robinson in terms of how many carries he's going to get during the season. If he can continue to do this, and if Gibson continues to fumble, then Brian Robinson's probably going to be RB1. Still don't know. I think it's still debatable. If Gibson has another fumble in the preseason, though, I think he's really, really going to be, it's probably going to be Brian Robinson as RB1. So he has to fix the fumbling issue, or else he's just not going to play much. He's not going to play much. So, something he definitely has to figure out for sure. Next guy on this list is Daniel Wise. I thought Daniel Wise, if not Steven Parker, the best player on the defense, I thought Daniel Wise was that guy. He had a sack on the day for a loss of 6 yards. He was running with the first team as well, mixing in there with James Smith-Williams on the edge, and he also can play, in the interior. So he really, really helped his stock in terms of making the team. I think he is going to make the team. He got a bunch of snaps, played with the first team, and had some good production. So let's see. I want to look where Daniel Wise. So he had 1 total tackle with a sack, but he had 2 quarterback hits. So he was very good for the Commanders yesterday, getting pressure. Like I know another play, this might have been the other quarterback hit he got. It was a deep pass from Baker to, I can't remember the receiver, but William Jackson was in coverage. It was solid coverage. He tried to get his hand in there, didn't quite affect or hit the ball, but Bob McCain came in there and just knocked the guy out. It was a great play by McCain, but Daniel Wise got some pressure on that play. He hit the quarterback, so that was another good play by him. I thought Daniel Wise had a really good day, and he's a guy that, the guys that are in the bubble, if they have games like this, it really helps their chance in terms of, making the roster. And I don't even know if Daniel Wise is on the bubble because he was working a lot with the first team. He produced at a pretty high level. So I think he's ahead of guys like, obviously Jacob Punasek, David Bada, William Bradley King, Shaka Toney, Bunmi Rotimi. I think he's ahead of all those guys, and maybe even Casey Tuhill as well. So I think he's making the roster for sure, and could be a solid piece for them while Chase Young is out. They need to find someone that can ball out for them while Chase Young is out, because right now it's Montez on one side, and then either James Smith-Williams, Casey Tuhill, Efe Obada, or maybe Daniel Wise. And I didn't see, speaking of Efe Obada, I didn't really notice him much. I'm pretty sure he played though, but did not notice Efe Obada much at all. So last guy on this list before we get into some honorable mentions, I thought Dax Milne played really, he was solid. He didn't play insane. He wasn't insane, but he had 2 catches for 30 yards, had that nice 23-yard catch. Can't show it here because of copyright issues, but he showed his speed. Like, he has some solid speed for sure. And, he also, if we go to the stats, he had 1 punt return for 12 yards, was the best return of the day, I felt like, on either a kick return or punt return. And I thought they should have given him some more opportunities maybe as a kick returner. Erickson also looked okay, kick returning or returning not that good. Didn't get too many opportunities, but as a receiver, he did pretty well. But Dax Milne caught 2 passes, 30 yards, and he also was open on another play where Heineke kind of sailed him, so he probably should have had like 3 catches for 40 yards. So, he was one of the better receivers today, was second in receiving behind Alex Erickson, but like, Alex Erickson, he was wide open, and, the coverage was terrible on him, and he just, ran it for 40 yards. So good for him. That was great. But, It's tough. They could, if, Dax Milne can't be their kick returner and no one else can, then it could be Alex Erickson, and they might have to keep 6 or 7, and then maybe they won't keep 4 running backs or 4 tight ends. So, that is something to consider for sure. But I think Dax Milne, I'm not going to say a roster lock because, I don't know. It's hard to tell if they're going to keep Erickson. I definitely think, though, I strongly believe he's going to make the roster, and I strongly believe he should make the roster. I think he's been better than guys like Cam Sims, even De'Ami Brown a little bit, even though De'Ami Brown had a good game, I thought. 2 catches, 14 yards, made a couple tough catches. Heineke threw kind of a hospital pass to him where he got laid out, but he played really well. So that is it for the guys whose, stock went up. Maybe a couple honorable mentions. I thought Armani Rogers looked, pretty solid. Was getting the first team reps because their top 3 tight ends were out. So, he took advantage of that. Same thing with Curtis Hodges. Talk about De'Ami Brown a little bit. Curtis Samuel looked good. Again, there was limited time, but 2 catches for 14 yards and, played pretty well. So I don't know if a guy like that, his stock can go up, but in terms of like maybe coming back from the injury, that's a guy for sure that looked good. And one guy I wanted to talk about that I noticed when I watched him, but I forgot to talk about it in the game or the game recap yesterday. That's Nate Gary, the linebacker that they signed. I thought he played pretty well. You could see his speed there. So he was running with the 3rd team, but that is somewhat understandable because they just signed him. But I think that's a guy that you could keep over David Mayo, even though they're going to keep David Mayo because he knows the defense. I wouldn't mind if they kept Nate Gary because I didn't think David Mayo played that well. Let's see. Yeah, Daniel Wise looked good. Fidarian Mathis was solid. We talked about Willie Beavers, the tackle. He looked good as well. So that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new. And, I forgot the last one. I thought Carson Wentz, he didn't increase his stock a ton, but he was solid. He was above average yesterday. So, maybe like a B grade. So he looked good, increased his stock a little bit. So thanks for watching. Peace.